All right, we're back here on the show. It's me, Hugh. Daryl is my co-host today, and we've got Eric Gilboard joining us now, CEO of WarrenBDC.com, right?
Yes, Warren Business Development Center.
Right, and so you're here not too long ago, and essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are involved with helping people transition out of their business. You know, when they to perhaps establish and then execute on their exit strategy.
Help them figure out what it is that they really want to do, how they want to exit. Help them increase the value of the company. So
Yeah.
take a $4 million company, make it an $8 or $10 million company.
Because, because you were saying that quite often these entrepreneur, visionary businessmen or women don't necessarily recognize all the value that their companies may have.
You find that with some folks, and we tend to deal with boomer age business owners, but not exclusively, and you find that you get into a rhythm, you've run a company for 20, 25, 30 years or more, and you get toward the end of that, the last 4 or 5 years, and you start to slow down, you start to go on cruise control, and you don't necessarily spend an awful lot of time increasing the value of the company. But once you get to that point where you're realizing that, hey, it's time to do something because we're actually going to be selling or transitioning the business, maybe we should increase the value of it so that we can get more for our effort.
And maybe sometimes even these owners, they don't even, maybe even have an exit strategy, right?
Most
They
of
just,
them don't have an exit strategy.
you know, they're just running their business, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, you know what? I'm gonna, retire in a couple or a few years, and I have no idea how that's gonna go.
Or nature, tells them it's time to retire. They have a health problem, or they have a relative that has a health problem, or there's, a partnership breakup of some sort. There's lots of different reasons why somebody could all of a sudden be in a position where they really seriously have to sit down and think about the exit strategy.
Okay.
If you don't make that decision, it'll be made for you.
Right. So obviously it would probably be a smart idea to be proactive about it, make the decision yourself, and start to establish some sort of a game
Take
plan.
control of the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So now you mentioned that, and this is kind of a provocative topic or whatever, but you're saying that the owners, they need to clean up, grow up, and scale up. And I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds like there might be a lot involved with that. It's a bit scary for an owner to contemplate those things.
Well, when you've been doing something a certain way for a long time, any kind of change is going to, disrupt them emotionally and disrupt the business. And in order to achieve a really successful transition, there's a number of things they have to do, and we've kind of broken it down into 3 areas. So, cleaning up is really going into all areas of the business: operations, finance, sales, marketing, and just clean things up. Maybe it's people, and maybe it's removing people that aren't really doing the job that they should be doing, that they've been doing this not to the best of their ability for a long time, or you've slowed down in the sales area, or you're using old marketing materials, or your bookkeeping isn't up to speed. There's lots of different things that can be cleaned up, right down to the physical space. You walk into someone's office and it looks like a 50-year-old office that hasn't been touched. And if somebody's going to entertain somebody coming in to potentially buy their company, they're going to be looking at all these things. So there's lots to look up, and the next stage is really grow up. And grow up is, let's start to think about processes and a little bit better management and more controls and documenting processes and things. And so it's really being more mature about how you run the business, because oftentimes entrepreneurs tend to run it in the smaller end, as a lifestyle company. They run it, according to their life and how they want to live it. But if you're thinking about, potentially selling the company, it's got to run without you, and it's got to run, well on its own. And then once you get those things done, you've cleaned up and you've grown up the attitude of the company and the way it does business, then it's time to scale up and to take the company as big as you decide that you want to take it, before you then determine it's time to sell.
It's kind of like, kind of reminds me of what, a similar process to you go through if you're selling your house, right?
Sure.
You want to stage it, you might want to fix a couple of things that you've been kind of letting go for a while, you might want to do the deck in the back that's rotting.
And that's,
Like
and
mine
that's
is.
that's the cleaning up, yeah, exactly, that's
Yeah.
the cleaning up part of it. You know, once you, the analogy for us is that, you know, in real estate and residential, it might be staging, but in, you know, our analogy is, it's more like adding an addition onto the house. Cleaning up is one thing, growing and scaling is really like adding a significant addition onto the home.
But even working with the same analogy or with business, it's a little bit counterintuitive, because someone thinking of getting out, now you're asking them to put all this energy into, you know, cleaning up, getting it ready, putting maybe more money
Sure.
into it.
It's like the person who puts a $50,000 kitchen into their house just before they sell it.
Right.
It's like, "Oh, why didn't you do it a decade before?
Yeah, so you
could
can
have had the
enjoy it.
enjoyment of
Right.
it." So what we're suggesting is you don't wait till the last minute
Right.
to do these things for your home. You do it well in advance,
Right.
so at the very least you enjoy the benefit of all the wonderful things that you're doing. And then on top of that,
Right.
you've got that opportunity to sell at a much higher price.
But I
Kind
guess,
of like having your cake and eating it too.
but it depends, I suppose, on the market too, because sometimes with the housing market, when it was hot, let's say a year ago, people didn't have to do anything to their houses, and they were getting multiple offers, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if their company is that lucrative in someone else's eyes, maybe they don't have to, or what's the sort of the, you know, the thing that's stopping people from doing this, if it is the thing that works, like, why don't people want to do this intuitively?
They don't want to do it because A, they don't think about it, and B,
Mhm.
it's a lot of work. And so you tend to need a team of people to
Yeah.
come in and actually help you get the job done. But if you look at it from this perspective, you know, you can sell your home, you can sell your business for X times EBITDA, which is a measurement that they use to value a company. And if it's under $10 million in annual sales, you might get 3 or 4 times EBITDA. And that's a general kind of a rule of thumb formula. On the other hand, if the company is over $10 million, you might get 6 or 7 times EBITDA. And the EBITDA itself, because the company is more valuable, will be higher. So now you're talking about a much higher EBITDA, 6 or 7 times instead of 3 or 4. That's life-changing money.
Right.
And, you know, at that point, if you've spent 30 years building something, why wouldn't you want to, you know, get the best out of it as you possibly can? And people don't do it because they think it's too much work.
Yeah,
They
work
have
is
people to help
scary.
them. It's different. The other thing is that, sure, somebody might come along and buy your $4.5 million company, but he's not gonna, you know, they're not going to pay you like it's a $10 million company
Right.
just because you think there's so much opportunity.
Right.
No one's gonna pay you for the opportunity.
Right.
They're gonna pay you for what it is right now.
Right.
So why don't you demonstrate the opportunity?
You have to show.
And then sell the business for more. That's the philosophy
Okay.
behind it.
It's kind of like, I'm thinking of, you know, a writer, right?
Tell, don't, show, don't tell.
Everybody needs an editor.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
just another set of eyes to come in
Absolutely.
and see things that you're just not seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is it extra work though, Eric?
You know, it's interesting. The first thing that an owner will consider is that we're creating work for them, but the way our company works is we come in and we do the work. So we help you figure out what you need to do. We help you actually get it done. And in fact, in a perfect world, if you're doing it right, what we want is we want the owner to only do the things that they love to do. Oftentimes owners get involved in admin or bookkeeping or payroll or
Which they have
other
no
kinds of
idea.
things that they hate doing because they got into the business to make widgets,
Right.
and that's what they love to do. So if you can remove the extra work that we talked about, if you can remove the work that they've been doing that they don't like, in fact, it's less work, it's more enjoyable, and then the obvious is, well, maybe they'll stay on a little longer. Well, why not? You know, there's no law that says that when you decide that you want to sell, that you actually have to do it. If you're enjoying yourself, if you're making money, if the company's running better, stay on for a few more years. Sell part of the company. You know, there's lots of different ways to make it work.
Well, if you can help these owners to get to a situation where they can do what they only love, I mean, I think that, sometimes I think the whole idea of retirement is almost an antiquated idea now, because
Yeah.
we're human beings, we're alive, we want to live, we want to contribute, you know, we want to do what we love. You know, and I think, how many times have we heard stories of people who, when they retired, they had no purpose, and They didn't last much longer.
No, they don't, and I've had personal experience with that, where people love to do something, and a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, you know, they passed away when they closed up the shop, and that's not what we're suggesting. And, you know, for a long time, people thought that the boomer generation would retire at 55 and go play golf and travel, and that was a myth. I mean,
Right.
that never happened. And so now those same people are 60, 65, 70 years old. And so you get a lot of people that are 70 and still healthy and vital, and they love the business and they don't want to leave. And again, it's, you can have your cake and eat it too. You don't necessarily have to cut it off, stop working, and change your life. If you've been doing something for decades, there's no way that you're going to easily and quietly go down the road of doing nothing. It's just not going to happen. So rather than having really ridiculous expectations, it makes a lot more sense to deal with the realities, the emotion. I mean, when we go in and talk to an owner, the first couple of meetings, it's about emotion. It's about what's going on inside their head. It's about their kids and their kids not wanting to take over the business.
Right.
It's about, you know, figuring out, well, what am I going to do if I sell? I have nothing to do. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Well, you don't know because you haven't spent any time really thinking about it. And so if someone like ourselves can come in and help you from a business standpoint and equally help you from a personal standpoint, then hopefully we're helping people in a lot of different ways to improve their lives.
Now, one question a lot of people will be wanting to know, Eric, is like, how do you guys get paid for doing what you do?
Well, we've moved to a success fee model, and essentially what it means is that, you know, we will come into a company, and frankly, there will be an upfront fee of a certain amount to cover the cost of doing an assessment of business, figure out kind of a top-down, bottom-up assessment, all the things that need to be addressed, all the opportunities, all the challenges, all the things that need to be adjusted. And that's kind of a phase one. Phase two is more of a coming in and actually getting into a much more detailed plan. And so let's assume for a second that the owners put some money up for the first part, because, you know, there's an expression, skin in the game, which I hate, but it's what people in business tend to use. And, you know, we're not going to do this because we're nice guys. We're going to do it because we're entering into a partnership. We're entering into a relationship, you know, with an owner. So that's kind of the first section. The second section, we're going into a much more detailed version of the plan, and that's going to require some more funding. But part of our business model is to bring government grants, to bring some other investment money, to work with the bank, to work with all the different aspects of a business, operations, finance, sales, marketing, HR, to make that business run more effectively while we're going through this process.
And most
help
owners
them-
didn't know about those other fundings or
No,
didn't
a
have
lot
time
of
to
them,
access.
a lot of them
Yeah.
didn't know that there was money available. A lot of them, as I said, aren't pushing the sales or marketing like they could.
Right.
So let's say, for argument's sake, that now there were some people involved and you were pushing it, and you were making additional sales, and you were making more profit on something. So there is money that we essentially almost produce out of thin air, if you will, in order to cover that second set of costs. And then the third set is that, you know, we're really going to start to scale, and principals of our company come in and we do it on a success fee basis. So if we're partnering with you, then we're going to take a percentage of, you know, the additional profit they call the lift of something. And so, you know, if we're going to double the size of the business and you're going to make $3 million more than you were before, you know, you can have 100% of what you had, or you can have 50 or 75% of, you know, a much greater number. So the numbers have to work, the mathematics have to be acceptable to an owner. But, you know, we're looking at it very much philosophically from the perspective of being partners with someone, because oftentimes you have someone who is incredible at making widgets, or they're incredible at solving complex engineering problems, but usually they're not great at the business side of it. So here we are to help supplement the things that you're not really great at, and together producing a much better business.
Or they may not have had any online presence because they were from a
Sure.
different generation, et cetera, all
Absolutely.
kind of things. Yeah.
We have one company that we're talking to, and they're in the food service business, and they provide equipment to restaurants and things like that. And they have they have a line, their own brand of pots and pans, and their restaurant quality pots and pans, and they currently sell it in a certain way through the food service industry. And you mentioned website.
Right.
The ability to come in and put together a good quality e-commerce website and do the proper SEO and all the right things, and sell these restaurant caliber kitchen, pots and
Internationally,
pans
yeah.
and things. Yeah, sell them to the person who sees themselves as the better cook. So instead of spending, I don't know, $30 on a frying pan, a regular one, spend $60 and get something that's really top quality. And it's not something that the owner had considered doing,
Right.
mostly because he didn't know how to do it. So it wasn't worth it. But the reality is that his business is set up to handle those kinds of sales. So we're opening different, channels of opportunity for him.
Now, is there particular businesses or industries that you prefer to work in?
We're spending a lot of time with manufacturing companies because oftentimes you can always go in and find efficiencies in operations, in finance, in sales, in marketing, in human resources, in the need for capital. There's always ways to improve manufacturing because typically manufacturing is always changing. So you get into businesses where people are making a widget that looks like this, and then someone asks for one that looks like that, and it's going to require different things to be done within the company. So always areas there, but we're not restricted to that. We're working with other folks and other kinds of businesses.
Because now how did you get the expertise to be able to do this for businesses, Eric?
Grew up in ad agencies, so spent 18 years or so in national ad agencies and worked in a lot of different kinds of business. And then started a marketing company in '94 called Soho Marketing, and I was kind of Mr. Marketing in small business. And working with those owners at that time, through the '90s and 2000s, they were in their 40s. And then, after 20 years or so of doing that, what I came to realize is that they were aging, and I started asking these questions about, what is it that you're doing in terms of selling the business? And they hadn't really thought about it. And up until this year, a lot of people hadn't thought about it. They just put it off and put it off. And so I realized there was an opportunity, and then we kind of rebranded a few years ago to Warren Business Development Center and started to add sales to the marketing, and then operations and finance to the sales and marketing, and learning about the business, and building our brand and building our awareness within the community of wealth management, trusted advisors, business owners, all the different aspects of merger and acquisition companies, business brokers, just raising our profile within the community, learning as much as we can, watching the marketplace and watching what was happening, and have over a period of time become, a little bit of thought leaders, because we've spent a tremendous amount of time not just worrying about finding somebody who wants to sell a business, but understand what's behind all that.
Right.
What is really influencing them, what's holding them back from doing the right things, and what can we do to help them become better at that whole concept of selling the business.
And from the high end to the low end, like what's the smallest operation that you deal with, and what's the biggest so far?
You know what, a couple million is really on the lower end. You need a certain amount of oomph behind them in order to get to it, and 20-25 million, those size companies. But there's a sweet spot of 5 to 10 million.
You could
somewhere
help
there.
grow that channel.
Good idea, Daryl.
There you go.
We can follow up with
We
that
can follow up
perhaps
with that.
after the show.
That's right.
But I have those kinds of conversations all the time, and yes, some people say it tongue in cheek, but it doesn't really matter what the business is, and I'm sure that if we sat down, we could have a conversation,
There you go.
and you probably have half the answers of what needs to be done to grow it, but there's things that are standing in the way, because oftentimes owners know what needs to be done.
Right.
I don't have capital, I don't have people, I don't have this, I don't have that. That's the conversation we have all the time with owners. It wouldn't be any different.
Now, I'm just thinking because.
So where do you want to take that channel?
Oh, do you want to have that conversation right now?
No.
I would love to have that conversation.
Later.
Maybe
In private.
I would love to
Yeah,
do that.
We're gonna do that when in private.
Well, what I was going to say, Eric, because just going back to this, I used to sell real estate, right? And that's why I'm kind of bringing that up as an analogy
Yeah,
here, is
okay.
that, but when you're selling, when you're a real estate, it's the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act. So when you're a real estate agent, you are also
Yes.
licensed to sell businesses. And I did sell a business once, just
Okay.
a business. There was no real
Mhm.
property involved. And it was a little lower than your low figure of 2 million. It was, I think I sold this business for
What's-
$5,500.
Okay.
It was a hot dog business.
But it might have been back in the day when 5,500 was worth, 55,000 today.
57.
Well, not really. But anyways, I managed to
Not
do
really.
it.
It was a hot dog.
And I'm just wondering
Depends if
though,
it was U.S. or Canadian
Yeah.
funds, you know.
it sounds like you're bringing a lot to the table here,
Yeah.
almost like a consultant. In fact, it's almost like what you're bringing to the table would work even if they have no plans on selling the company. It sounds like you could go into almost
grow
any
that
company,
company.
find efficiencies,
Absolutely.
help them to grow the business. But do you get involved in the actual sales of the business?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a laundry list of people who are looking to buy really good companies.
Oh, wow.
And so we get calls all the time, and we get people literally calling us saying, we need to buy 10 $5 million companies.
Really?
Yeah, because it seems to be the best place to deploy funds, to invest money, is into low profile, kind of under the radar, good, consistent cash flow, employees, profitable companies.
So are they looking,
That's
sorry,
where-
just to, are
yeah.
they looking just to buy it and keep the management staff going the way it is?
Ideally, yeah. Ideally, they want
Just
the
they
owner
wanna
to
be the
stay in-
investor, right.
Ideally, they want the owner to stay involved.
Right.
I mean, there's a group in town that I've met with a number of times, and last count, they had 55 businesses that were all $2, $3, $4, $5 million.
Wow.
Together, they'll do $300 million this year.
Wow.
So it's something that investors are looking
Right.
to do. There's a fundamental difference between a fund, a hedge fund, buying a small company versus an owner-operator, a retired or previous owner-operator, or serial entrepreneur who understands the what is the day-to-day of running a business. And sorry, hedge funds, but I don't think they necessarily get.
Right.
And it's a fundamental difference.
Yeah.
So, there's certain people that we want to do business with, and there's certain buyers that that we want to do business with. I should note that we also have been getting a lot of calls lately from owners in their 40s and 50s who are not waiting to the last minute to make a decision. They're getting in on the right side of what's happening. They realize what's going on in the marketplace. And so we're getting calls from people saying, you know what, our plan is to sell 10, 15 years from now. But we want to get started now because we also don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
If for some reason, we're working with the company now, and their plan was a 15-year plan to become a certain size. And, we've shown them that we can actually get them to what they thought they wanted to be in probably 5 years or less.
Right.
And so it's a couple that own the company, and they're in their early 40s, and it gives them the opportunity to stick to the plan and be bigger and better in 15 years, or even bigger than they thought they could. Or maybe you decide that you want to get out in 5 or 6 or 7 years and then take on another challenge and go and do something else. So it's about choice, and it's interesting that younger people are tuning in and realizing now is the time to get going on things.
Well, it sounds like if you do it early enough, or actually if you do it anytime, like
Yes.
all you got is right now,
Do it.
but you're opening up all kinds of new options for
Right.
people that may not have existed there before. I'm just curious, though. I mean, maybe the owner's wanting to sell because, he's not having as much fun as he wants. He's not doing exactly what he loves. He's got to do some of that other stuff. But then you come in, you get him in a position where he just is doing what he loves,
Right.
and maybe he doesn't want to sell anymore. I mean,
Right.
what happens when
Absolutely. There will come a point where he will want to do some kind of a transition.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. But again, if you can give him the best of both worlds, if he can keep, for example, 30% of the company and sell 70, that 30%, A, he might have a better, a good time in staying with the business.
Right.
B, the business is probably going to do better having him around. And C, that 30% might actually be worth more than the original 70% that he sold for. Because if the business grows exponentially, then he's done himself a great deal of good. He's done the business a lot of good. He's made sure that his staff and and his customers are well taken care of,
Yeah.
because he stayed for the, you know, for the long haul. Nobody's trying to chase anyone out the door.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to do that.
You're catching all these things right here.
Well, I'm
You've got the
glad,
Port Colborne property then, and you're here. You're
Daryl, you're
doing both.
giving away all my secrets.
Okay, but no one
Live
knows
on
what
the
I'm talking
TV.
about. No one knows what I'm talking about. You know.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
We'll take
Yeah.
it offline, we'll have a
That's right.
conversation. and
That's
so-
Yeah, and even if I'm missing anything here, Daryl,
Yeah, I'll remind
we're
you.
videotaping it. We
That's
can
right.
watch it
Go
again.
back and record this.
Yeah. So,
Get a transcript, you know, just highlight it.
That's right.
okay, Eric. So now we're gonna give out your website and stuff. But who's watching this? Like, who should really consider giving you a call?
You know, there's a couple of different answers to the question. Obviously, owners of small and medium-sized companies, it could be their kids, it could be a spouse. And why the kids are the spouse? Because they want the owner to just start to take it easy. They want to spend some time. When we talk to owners that are in their early 70s, you can see the look on their face. And not desperation per se, but you can see there's a real sense of urgency. And when you talk to them, you find out that, well, we probably should have done something,
10 years ago.
5, 10
Yeah.
years ago. So clearly family, immediate family is always good. And, you know, they want the owners to spend time with the grandchildren. They, you know, they want to enjoy themselves. Trusted advisors. So it might be wealth management folks, it might be an accountant, it might be a lawyer. You know, it's interesting from an accounting perspective or wealth management perspective. Typically, 80% of an owner's wealth is wrapped up in the company.
Right.
So if I was your wealth management advisor, I'm perhaps managing $2 million of your wealth, and $8 million is wrapped up in the company.
You want to liberate some of that.
I want to make absolutely certain that I have a seat at the table when that conversation moves to, I'm going to transition the business. So wealth management people clearly have a vested interest. Accountants, if they were smart, they'd be involved because, you know, potentially they want to continue that relationship. They don't want to see somebody just come in, buy a company and switch things over. So they also want a seat at the table for the transition period. And obviously if they're doing a good job, then, you know, perhaps they'll just stay on.
Right.
And
That's-
lawyers, people like that.
Yeah, those trusted advisors.
Mhm.
Okay, so what would be the first step for people that want to maybe get in touch?
Go to the website. Go to warrenbdc.com and just cruise around, and there's a lot of information. It's easy to make a call, and they can call me directly. The number's there, or an email, or fill out a contact form. But the first step is, if you want to understand that we understand what's going on in your head, that it will be an easy first conversation, we'll be able to relate to each other well, go to the website, read a few things, look at a couple of videos. It doesn't take long, and I'm comfortable that your comfort level with us will be worthy of at least a phone conversation and perhaps coffee or lunch or something.
And
And I'll bring them a copy of my book
Oh, what,
as a gift.
Yeah,
How
what's the
about
book
that?
called again?
It's
to-
called Moving Forward.
Moving Forward. And the great thing is, it's not like the yellow pages where you're just picking. I mean, people, they know you just from watching this interview. They get a sense of who you are, Eric, and so that relationship is already
Thank you.
in play. So, thanks for coming in again today.
Thank you for having me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay. All right, we're gonna take a short break here, and then we got Deanie Petty and Paco and the dog. I forget. What is it? Azzy. We're gonna get Azzy on the show. I hope. It's always great to have a dog around here. Okay, so quick break. We'll be right back. GratChannel.com.